My brother betrayed me to our parents while I worked overtime. So I left without a word and rebuilt a life they can't touch. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and if I had to describe my role in my family, it would be simple. I've always been the responsible one. The one who never says no. The one who picks up the slack without complaint. It wasn't something I chose. It just happened over time. My parents would call it being dependable. But sometimes, it felt more like being invisible. When I turned 21, I stopped dreaming about traveling or starting something of my own, and instead focused on finding stability. I got a full-time job at a logistics company and immediately started helping with the bills. My dad's small business had gone under, and my mom was recovering from a surgery she couldn't afford. It wasn't even a question. I covered what they couldn't. I told myself this was what family did. We take care of each other. Meanwhile, my younger brother, Kyle, was always chasing what he called his creative passions. Music, art, photography, a new dream every few months. Our parents ate it up. They'd say things like, "He just needs time to figure it out," or "Kyle's got a spark." Whenever I'd come home tired from work, they'd be showing off his new song or a painting he didn't finish. I'd clap, smile, and remind myself that being the steady one was my strength. Still, there were nights when I'd stare at my paycheck and think about how little I kept for myself. Groceries, utilities, car payments, all of it went back into the household. Even Kyle's emergencies somehow became my responsibility. I'd lend him money he never mentioned again. But I didn't complain. Not yet. I told myself I was proud to keep everything running, that maybe one day, they'd finally see how much weight I carried for all of them. I just didn't realize how much that belief would cost me. I don't think I ever truly understood what favoritism meant until I saw it happen in my own house. My parents always found ways to make Kyle shine, no matter how little effort he put in. If he got a few hundred views on one of his songs, they'd beam like he'd won a Grammy. If I mentioned working overtime to keep the lights on, they'd nod distractedly and ask if I'd heard Kyle's new track yet. I still remember one dinner that changed how I looked at things. Mom had made her special lasagna, something she only did for celebrations. I assumed maybe my promotion had finally reached her ears, but before I could ask, Dad raised a glass and said, "To Kyle, our dreamer. He just got invited to perform at an open mic downtown." They all cheered while I sat there, fork halfway to my mouth, realizing the celebration had nothing to do with me. Kyle grinned across the table and said, "Couldn't have done it without my brother helping out with some extra cash." Everyone laughed, and I froze. He wasn't joking. The extra cash was the rent money I had transferred that month. But to my parents, it sounded like generosity from him, not responsibility from me. Later that night, Mom hugged me in the kitchen and said softly, "You're so lucky to have a talented brother. He's going to make us all proud one day." I wanted to tell her that I'd been trying to make her proud my entire life. But the words stuck somewhere between my chest and throat. As I lay in bed that night, I realized something painful. It didn't matter what I did. In this family, effort didn't equal love. Attention did. And Kyle had all of it. I tried to bury the resentment, but a small part of me knew. Cracks were beginning to form, and I wouldn't be able to hold them together forever. The day I got promoted should have been one of the happiest days of my life. After years of taking extra shifts and skipping vacations, I was finally recognized. A management role, better pay, real benefits. For once, I walked through the front door with a smile that didn't feel forced. I wanted my family to share that joy. Maybe, I thought, they'd finally see that my sacrifices meant something. When I told them over dinner, Mom gave a polite smile. Dad muttered a quick, "That's good, son," before asking Kyle how his creative project was going. Kyle smirked, resting his chin on his hand. "Guess you'll be too busy for family dinners now, huh?" he said. The words stung, not because of the sarcasm, but because my parents actually nodded like he had a point. A few days later, Mom called me during work. Her tone was cold, clipped, the way she sounded when she was disappointed. She said Kyle told her I'd bragged about the promotion and made him feel small. My stomach dropped. I hadn't bragged. I just wanted to celebrate with them. But the damage was already done. That evening, I came home to find Kyle sprawled on the couch, pretending to look guilty. "I didn't mean for them to get upset," he said casually. "I just told them how you said you're moving up in the world and might not have time for us anymore." I stood there, speechless. He twisted a happy moment into something selfish and cruel, and my parents believed him without question. As I went to bed that night, I realized something had shifted permanently. My achievements weren't just ignored anymore. They were ammunition, and my brother had learned exactly how to use them. After that incident, the air in the house changed. It wasn't obvious at first, just a colder tone, shorter conversations, fewer smiles. But over time, it became suffocating. Every time I walked in from work, I could feel it, the weight of quiet judgment. Mom would glance at me like she was trying to read arrogance in my face, while Dad barely looked up from his newspaper. Kyle, on the other hand, had perfected his act. He'd walk around the house, sighing dramatically, saying things like, "I just wish I had the same support he does," loud enough for everyone to hear. When I'd ask what that meant, he'd shrug and say, "Nothing, man. Just talking to myself." And yet, I'd catch Mom looking at me afterward like I'd done something wrong. The worst part was how good he was at playing the victim. He started telling extended family that I'd changed, that I looked down on everyone now that I had a better job. My aunt even texted me once, saying, "Don't forget who helped you when you were younger." I didn't even know how to respond, because I had helped them. One evening, I overheard Mom whispering to Dad in the kitchen. "I think success has made him cold," she said softly. My chest tightened. Success? I was killing myself to make sure they never went without heat, food, or electricity. How could that make me cold? That night, I stayed up late, staring at the ceiling. I tried to convince myself it was just a misunderstanding, that family love couldn't vanish this easily. But deep down, I knew Kyle wasn't clueless. He was deliberate. Every word, every story, every innocent act of concern was a move in his game. And the worst part? I was still playing by the old rules, believing family was sacred, while he was rewriting the meaning of loyalty behind my back. It was a rainy Friday night when Kyle called me, sounding panicked. "Hey man, listen, I hate to ask, but Mom and Dad are behind on the electric bill. It's going to get shut off tomorrow." I was exhausted after a 12-hour shift, but his tone carried just enough urgency to make me act without thinking. I transferred the money right away, telling him, "Just make sure they're okay." He promised he'd handle it. 2 days later, I stopped by the house to check in. The lights were on, the TV blaring, and Mom was humming in the kitchen. No sign of a financial crisis. When I casually asked about the bills, she looked confused. "Oh, everything's fine. Kyle paid for them last week." My heart dropped. That money wasn't for them. It was supposed to cover the overdue bills. A few hours later, I confronted Kyle in the driveway. He laughed. Actually laughed. "Relax, dude," he said. "I used it to invest in something real. You should be thanking me when it pays off." I could barely get words out. "You lied. You said it was for Mom and Dad." He shrugged. "You're so dramatic. It's still helping the family in the long run." The next morning, I woke up to a message from Mom. "Your brother told us you screamed at him over money. You need to calm down. We raised you better than this." My blood boiled. He'd beaten me to the story again, framing me before I could even defend myself. That was the moment I realized the truth I'd been avoiding. Kyle didn't just take advantage of me. He was rewriting the narrative, turning my loyalty into proof of selfishness. And for the first time, I started to wonder if the only way to win was to walk away entirely. I came home from work that evening determined to clear things up. My chest was heavy, my head pounding from replaying Kyle's smirk in the driveway. I gathered the text receipts, bank statements, every piece of proof showing what had actually happened. When I walked into the living room, my parents were already waiting, like they'd rehearsed this intervention. Dad spoke first. "Your mother and I are disappointed, son. You've changed. You're letting money control you." I tried to hand him my phone, my voice trembling. "Dad, please just look," he lied. He said it was for the electric bill, but he used it on himself. Mom crossed her arms. "That's not what Kyle said. He told us he was trying to start something meaningful for all of us." It was like talking to a wall. Every time I tried to explain, they interrupted with excuses for him. Kyle sat at the corner of the couch, quiet, pretending to avoid the conflict. But his eyes said everything. He was enjoying it. When Dad finally snapped, "We don't need proof. You've lost your way." Something inside me broke clean in half. I looked at them, really looked, and saw people who didn't know me at all. Years of sacrifice, overtime, skipped meals, and quiet loyalty, all erased with one lie. I didn't argue. I just said, "Okay," and turned toward my room. Kyle called after me, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Hey man, don't take it so personal." That was it. The final nail. I closed my door, packed a few things, and sat on my bed for hours, staring at the wall. My hands were shaking, but not from anger, from clarity. For the first time, I realized I wasn't part of a family. I was part of a system that only worked if I kept losing. And that night, I promised myself I was done losing. A few weeks passed after that confrontation, and I kept my distance. I went to work, came home, and avoided any conversation that might pull me back into their drama. The silence was strange at first, but it was the only thing keeping me sane. Then, one morning, I got an email from HR with the subject line, "Urgent, investigation notice." My stomach turned cold before I even opened it. Apparently, someone had filed a complaint against me, accusing me of falsifying overtime hours and misusing company funds. I felt my heart pounding as I scrolled through the details. The report included screenshots from my work email, sent after hours from my home IP address. But that was impossible. I hadn't logged in from home for months. I rushed to the IT department and begged them to trace the access logs. A few hours later, they confirmed the location. It came from my family's Wi-Fi. My laptop. The one Kyle borrowed a few weeks ago when his business partner needed a proposal typed up. I remember brushing it off at the time, thinking I was helping him out like always. Now it felt like the dumbest mistake of my life. Luckily, the logs proved my innocence. HR apologized, and I kept my job. But something inside me shattered deeper than before. This wasn't manipulation anymore. It was sabotage. My own brother tried to destroy the only thing I had left that was truly mine. That night, I sat in my car outside the house, engine off, staring at the windows glowing faintly behind the curtains. I realized I wasn't safe there. Not emotionally, not mentally, not even professionally. I didn't go inside. I just drove away into the dark, no destination in mind. Only one clear thought echoing in my head. It's time to disappear. The next morning, I woke up with a calmness that felt almost unnatural, like the eye of a storm. I'd spent years fighting for approval that never existed, and I was done. No more explanations, no more arguments, no more giving people the ammunition to shoot me with. I went to work like normal, smiled at my coworkers, and quietly handed in a short leave notice. By evening, I had started my plan. Over the next week, I moved in silence. I sold my old car, closed joint accounts, and transferred what little savings I had into a new one. I packed only the essentials, clothes, a few photos, documents, and my laptop. No long letters, no dramatic exits. Just one short note left on the kitchen table. Take care of each other. I'm done playing the villain. When I finally walked out that door, I didn't look back. I drove through the night until I hit a city I'd only ever seen on road signs. I rented a tiny apartment, bare walls, creaky floors, the kind of silence that feels heavy but honest. For the first time in years, there was no tension, no accusations, no walking on eggshells. Just quiet. My phone buzzed constantly for the next few days. Mom, Dad, Kyle, all calling, all leaving voicemails that swung between guilt, anger, and denial. We're worried. You're overreacting. Kyle didn't mean it. I deleted them all without listening past the first few seconds. One evening, as I sat on the floor eating takeout straight from the box, I realized something freeing. They couldn't touch me anymore. Not my peace, not my work, not my life. For once, the silence wasn't loneliness. It was power. And I knew, deep down, that leaving was just the beginning of something bigger. Starting over was terrifying, but also strangely exhilarating. I didn't have much, a few boxes, a laptop, and enough money to survive for a month. But I also didn't have to apologize for existing anymore. Every morning, I'd wake up in that small, sunlit apartment and remind myself, this is mine. Every inch of it. I worked my regular job remotely, keeping my head down, and began planning something I'd always dreamed of, a business of my own. It started small. I began offering logistics consulting online, using the skills I'd spent years perfecting at my old job. Clients trickled in slowly at first, but I poured everything into it. Long nights, research, building a reputation from scratch. It was grueling, but it was mine. No one could take credit for it, twist it, or turn it against me. Over time, I started to heal in ways I didn't expect. I went to therapy, something I never would have done before, because I thought admitting pain was weakness. My therapist told me, "You've spent your life earning love that was never meant to be conditional." That hit harder than I wanted to admit. Months turned into a year. My business grew. I upgraded to a bigger apartment, hired a small team, and found myself smiling without forcing it. I even reconnected with a few old friends who used to think I was too busy for life. They saw the difference in me right away. "You look lighter," one said. And they were right. I'd finally laid down the burden I was never meant to carry. Every now and then, I'd glance at my phone, half expecting another guilt message from my family. But they'd gone quiet, and I realized I didn't miss the noise. For the first time in my life, peace wasn't something I bought with exhaustion. It was something I built with boundaries. It had been almost a year since I left when karma finally caught up. I was drinking my morning coffee, scrolling through emails, when a familiar name popped up on social media: Kyle. His page, once filled with motivational quotes and entrepreneur life posts, had turned into a flood of desperate messages and comments. He'd been accused of scamming multiple people through his so-called investment venture. My first reaction wasn't joy, it was disbelief. But then, as I kept reading, the irony hit hard. A former classmate of his had posted the full story. Kyle had convinced people to invest in a fake startup, promising quick returns, then vanished with their money. The kicker? He'd used mom and dad's house as collateral to secure one of his loans. My stomach twisted. The same house I'd helped keep from foreclosure years ago was now on the brink of being taken away because of him. A week later, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Mom. "Your brother made mistakes. We're in trouble. Please call us." I just stared at it for a long time. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of what they'd done to me. Just another plea for rescue. The same pattern, replaying like clockwork. For a brief second, I felt that old instinct kick in, the urge to fix everything, to protect them. But it passed. I wasn't their safety net anymore. They had made their choices. Over the next few weeks, I heard through distant relatives that the house had been sold. Kyle was hiding out, avoiding the people he owed money to. My parents were renting a small place in a cheaper neighborhood, still clinging to the illusion that family love could fix everything. And for once, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The consequences had finally found the people who'd never believed they existed. It was another quiet Sunday when I decided to go back, not out of nostalgia, but closure. A full year had passed since I'd seen them, and though I'd built an entirely new life, part of me still needed to see the truth with my own eyes. When I pulled up to the old house, it looked smaller, tired. Paint peeling, weeds overtaking the yard. I used to dream about fixing it up. Now, it just looked like the perfect metaphor for what we'd become. Dad answered the door. His face fell when he saw me, like guilt had aged him faster than time ever could. Mom appeared behind him, thinner, quieter than I remembered. For a few seconds, no one spoke, until she whispered, "We didn't think you'd ever come back." I stepped inside, the familiar smell of old wood and detergent washing over me. Kyle was there too, sitting on the couch, staring at the floor. He looked nothing like the smug brother I'd left behind. His hair was messy, eyes hollow, hands trembling. "Hey," he muttered, voice barely audible. "I messed up, man." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, you did." Mom jumped in quickly. "He's learned his lesson. We all have. We just want to start fresh." Her words felt rehearsed, like a peace offering written too late. I looked around that room, the one where I used to eat dinners I paid for, take blame I didn't earn, and chase affection I never got. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger, just distance. "You didn't know who I was," I said quietly. "You only knew what I could do for you. And when that stopped, so did your love." No one argued, not even Kyle. As I walked out the front door, Mom called after me, "Please, don't disappear again." I didn't look back this time. I just said, "I already did." It's been 3 years since that day. I haven't spoken to my family since, and honestly, I don't think I ever will. I built a life that's mine, untouched, untainted, and finally peaceful. My business now has a small office downtown with 5 employees who feel more like family than the people I grew up with ever did. When I walk in every morning, the smell of fresh coffee and the sound of keyboards clicking reminds me of one thing. I did this alone. And that's okay. Sometimes I still think about them. Not with anger, but with clarity. I wonder if they sit around their tiny rental home, replaying the choices that led them there. Do they ever talk about how easily they traded loyalty for comfort? Or how the brother they used to call selfish was the only one who ever kept them afloat? Maybe. Or maybe they're still convincing themselves I abandoned them. Either way, it's no longer my burden to fix. Kyle reached out once, months ago. Just a short text. I'm sorry. I lost everything. I stared at it for a long while, then deleted it without replying. Not out of cruelty, but acceptance. Some apologies come too late, and some wounds aren't meant to be reopened. Now, when I look out my office window and see the city skyline, I feel a quiet pride. Not the kind that needs validation or applause, just the kind that comes from knowing I survived what was meant to break me. I used to think cutting people off was cruel, but the truth is, walking away isn't hatred, it's healing. I didn't rebuild my life to prove them wrong. I rebuilt it so they could never touch it again.